2026 is not just another year. It stands on the edge of what we once thought impossible. It is the moment when many threads of change finally align. You might notice shifts in technology, politics, climate, and society all around you. But what's coming next is not random. It is a combination of forces that will shape the way we live for decades to come. People will look back at this year and wonder if they recognize the signs or if it passed by while they were caught up in daily routines. In this video, you will learn why 2026 is more than just a date on the calendar. You will discover the real forces driving this turning point. You will understand what experts quietly call a pivotal chapter in human history. And you will see why the choices made this year matter to every person on the planet. We will explore the most important trends in technology, climate, geopolitics, and the economy. You will hear insights that are often hidden from the surface and facts that reveal the deep transformations happening right now. You will learn how artificial intelligence is moving from ideas and labs into real-world impact, and how this shift could change jobs, wealth, and power in ways most people have not yet fully realized. You will hear about tensions building in global politics, and why specific treaties, partnerships, and summits in 2026 could redraw influence maps for generations. You will learn how climate pressures are no longer distant worries, but immediate challenges that governments, industries, and communities are urgently trying to manage. As heat records are broken and extreme weather becomes increasingly normal, you will see how economies are being tested by forces like energy transition, digital disruption, and evolving trade patterns. By the time you finish this video, you will see 2026 not as a faraway year, but as a turning point happening in real time, a year where the future begins to look very different from the past. Something remarkable is happening right now. Technology is no longer just changing gadgets, it is reshaping the structure of society itself. Some of the largest advancements in artificial intelligence will move from labs into everyday life this year, demanding decisions about ethics, jobs, and influence. Major companies are racing to deliver real value, not just promises. The era of hype is ending, and the era of real results is beginning. Real money, real markets, and real influence are now tied to artificial intelligence in ways that will affect how we all work and earn. And it is happening faster than most people realize. At the same time, global leaders are preparing for historic meetings that could redefine alliances, economic partnerships, and diplomatic balances that have lasted for decades. These are not simple photo ops or routine gatherings. They are moments where nations will attempt to set rules for cooperation, competition, and conflict in the years ahead. Meanwhile, the climate story is no longer about distant threats. Official forecasts now suggest that 2026 will rank among the hottest years ever recorded. This is already shaping markets, infrastructure planning, energy systems, and migration patterns worldwide. Some regions will face heat waves that affect food production, water availability, and daily life. Others will see new investments in climate resilience and smart technology. These changes do not happen in isolation. They interact and build on decades of trends now reaching a critical tipping point. What makes 2026 unique is not one single event, but the collision of many forces at once. Technology, power, climate, money, and human life are all being influenced by the same unstoppable momentum. If you watch closely, you begin to see that this year could be the hinge between the world that was and the world that is emerging. Understanding these changes takes more than headlines or shallow analysis. You need to grasp the bigger picture, the interconnected events, the underlying trends, and the real stakes for people like you. That's what this video will show step by step. You will leave with a clearer idea of what lies ahead and why this year matters more than most others in living memory. Stay with us through every part, because by the end of this video, you may not view 2026 the same way again. You may see it as the pivot of our era, the moment when history accelerated, when decisions were made, when trajectories shifted, and when the everyday future became the extraordinary present. Thank you for being here. Welcome to our channel. If you want to stay informed about the forces shaping the world, subscribe now and join the conversation about what comes next. The world is approaching a moment of undeniable clarity. By 2026, environmental realities that have quietly been building for decades will no longer be abstract predictions. Global temperatures continue to rise, glaciers are melting faster than expected, and rainfall patterns that farmers and cities have relied on are shifting in ways that already affect food production, water availability, and ecosystems. This is not meant to alarm, but to create awareness. Key environmental deadlines are approaching and cannot be postponed. Nations have been warned repeatedly. Agreements have been signed and sometimes ignored, but the science remains clear. Choices made this year will determine the state of our environment for decades. Natural resources are reaching real limits. Water scarcity is expected to worsen in many regions. Energy use is putting unprecedented pressure on infrastructure, and biodiversity loss is accelerating, threatening ecosystems that supply food, clean air, and economic stability. Industries are beginning to respond, investing in renewable energy, circular economies, and sustainable practices. But change is uneven. The reality is that 2026 is a deadline year, not because huge catastrophe is inevitable, but because the window for action is closing. Clarity comes from the numbers, trends, and evidence that are now impossible to ignore. Every policy, every business move, every personal choice contributes to the future. The year 2026 will be remembered not for a single event, but for the accumulation of many small, significant actions that together tip the balance toward resilience or decline. Yet this is not a time for panic. Understanding the stakes allows for informed decisions, meaningful changes, and actions that truly matter. It is a year for seeing connections, noticing how habits, energy use, and technology choices intersect with climate realities. Every individual matters, because history is shaped not only by governments or corporations, but by the collective actions of people every day. Choosing sustainable energy, reducing waste, supporting innovations that respect the planet, and adjusting personal habits are not radical acts. They are practical responses to an urgent timeline. Each of us contributes to momentum that preserves options or closes them, often without realizing it. The impact of 2026 will be measured over decades, but it begins with awareness in this moment. Personal choices, however small, compound across communities, economies, and ecosystems. Technology use is one of the most visible ways individuals influence outcomes. Smart energy management in homes and offices, conscious adoption of digital services that reduce environmental impact, and support for innovations that prioritize sustainability all help shape the future. Awareness also goes beyond consumption. It involves mindset, priorities, and focus. How people think about the future, how seriously they consider consequences, and the actions they take to align with scientific understanding and social responsibility will affect the outcomes of this year. History will remember 2026 differently for each person, depending on how aware they were of these choices, how deliberate their actions, and how closely they followed the forces shaping the world. Some will see it as a turning point, a year when efforts were made to shift direction. Others may see it as a year that passed quietly with little action, leaving future generations to face the results. The difference is awareness, active participation versus passive observation. This is why reflection is vital. Pausing to consider the long-term effects of everyday actions is essential in 2026. Small, consistent choices ripple outward. Energy use, transportation habits, food choices, technology adoption, investment decisions, and even civic engagement all contribute to patterns that define environmental outcomes. At the same time, global developments in technology, economy, politics, and climate are all interconnected. Understanding how these forces interact is key to navigating this year. By combining awareness, informed decisions, and practical actions, individuals and societies can influence Heather 2026 becomes a year of resilience, progress, and meaningful change. or a year remembered for missed opportunities and delayed responses. Every action counts, every choice matters, and by engaging with the world thoughtfully, this year can be a pivotal moment that defines the trajectory of human life for generations and social outcomes. Reflection lets people step back, connect the dots between their own actions and wider global trends, and see that even small efforts matter when multiplied across millions of individuals. The calm understanding of these realities is powerful. It gives people the ability to respond, adapt, and shape results without being frozen by fear. It turns awareness into purposeful action. Every moment of decision, every recognition of consequence, every mindful choice adds to a bigger story that unfolds over years and decades. In 2026, the sum of these choices may decide whether societies meet climate targets, stabilize economies, protect ecosystems, and stay resilient in the face of uncertainty. There is a subtle balance between urgency and personal power. The urgency is undeniable. Environmental deadlines are near. The power to act is real too. The ability to make a difference lies in both individual and collective choices. This balance is what makes 2026 so important. It is a year that blends facts with human behavior, science with society, trends with personal responsibility. It is a year when simply observing is not enough. Reflection is essay. Intial. Thinking carefully about how today's choices affect tomorrow's outcomes is key to navigating the fast pace of change. The emotional side matters just as much. Understanding the risks without feeling despair allows people to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Calm reflection opens the door to deliberate action, meaningful involvement, and shaping paths that might otherwise pass unnoticed. Asking yourself, "What will I do differently?" becomes central. It is not just a question to think about. It is a practical guide for making decisions. What changes will you make in energy use, adopting new technology, consumption, or daily habits? How will your mindset shift to prioritize long-term stability over immediate convenience? These are the questions that define the personal impact of 2026. Pause and think about them. Reflect quietly on what truly matters. Observe the systems around you, the links between behavior, resources, and society. Recognize that your decisions have effects beyond the immediate moment. The clarity of this year comes from connecting these dots. It is a year of cause and effect, of influence and consequence, of awareness and responsibility. Reflection allows people not just to notice external changes, but also to internalize their role in them. Personal awareness turns statistics into real experience, making abstract climate predictions and environmental data into decisions with meaning in everyday life. It turns deadlines into actionable guidance. In 2026, this reflection will be active, quiet, and strong. Considering these questions, viewers will start to think differently about how they spend their time, energy, and attention. The impact of 2026 will not only show up in global data, but in millions of personal decisions made thoughtfully and intentionally. In this calm, reflective state, there is room for understanding, for action, and for influence. Knowing that history will remember the year differently for each person emphasizes the personal stakes. It reinforces the idea that responsibility is shared, and that meaningful participation at the individual level contributes to collective results. These insights are not theoretical. They come from real patterns in climate, resources, social behavior, and technology adoption. Each factor strengthens the others, forming a web of influence that links personal choices with global consequences. Awareness transforms watching into action, reflection into responsibility, and curiosity into deliberate involvement. It is the mindset that separates those who just watch events unfold from those who help shape them. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what will I do differently this year? The answer will affect not only your own journey, but the paths of others and the future that continues beyond 2026. These ideas connect the personal and the global, linking everyday actions to long-term results. Every choice, no matter how small, is part of a larger chain of cause and effect. Reflection makes these connections visible, understandable, and actionable. It gives the calm clarity needed to handle complexity without panic. By observing, reflecting, and adjusting behavior, people contribute to stability, resilience, and informed adaptation. In this way, 2026 becomes a year of deliberate awareness.
AIs are able to learn and change by themselves, to make decisions by themselves, to invent new ideas by themselves. If a machine cannot do that, it's not really an AI. So a coffee machine that just makes you coffee automatically, but by a pre-programmed way, and it never learns anything new, it's just an automatic machine. It becomes an AI if, as you approach the coffee machine, the machine, before you press any button, addresses you and says to you, I've been watching you for the last weeks or months, and based on everything I've learned about you and your facial expression and the time of day and so forth, I predict you would like an espresso, so I already took the liberty to make a cup for you. If it then tells you, actually, I've invented a new drink that no human ever thought about before, I call it Bespresso, and I think it's better than espresso, you would like it more, and I took the liberty to prepare a cup for you, then it's really an AI.
The main premise of AI is to be better than us at decision-making in many fields, that it would be able to invent things that we cannot think about, but that is also the main threat, that we cannot predict how it will behave, and we cannot control it in advance, no matter how much we try to make it safe, to align it with our aims, with our goals. It really goes to the heart of what AI is. It's no longer artificial. Yeah. If you think about what an artifact is something that we create and we control. With each passing day, AI is becoming less and less artificial, which is why I prefer to think about AI as an acronym for alien intelligence.
Another story is about Tiberius, the Roman Emperor Tiberius. He was afraid to be assassinated, like all emperors. Unfortunately for him, the commander of his bodyguard, Sejanus, was an extremely ambitious person also. Sejanus convinced Tiberius to move to live on the small island of Capri, telling Tiberius that there he will be safer, because it would be easier to protect him against assassins and spies and so forth. And Tiberius moved to live in Capri. But then Sejanus controlled all the information that reached the emperor. It was very easy for him. But nobody could get to Capri. No letter could reach the emperor unless it passed through the hands of the bodyguards. And Sejanus became the real ruler of the Roman Empire because he controlled all the information reaching Tiberius. And if somebody tried to make a move against him, you could always tell Tiberius that this person was conspiring against him or was a threat and should be eliminated. And to some extent, this is true of all of us. All of us can find ourselves isolated on an island, maybe a digital island, and whoever controls the information that reaches our ears and eyes control us.